Welcome back to The Corporate Hangover. I'm your host, Tiffany Kennedy, and today we are speaking with Stephanie Tobin, who is a writer, she's a healer, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have. She's going to take us through what it looks like when you're looking to find your purpose and to walk in that. And we're going to really deep dive into her journey and some of the lessons that she's learned along the way. If we're lucky, she might share some insights from her book with us. So I'm really looking forward to that, Stephanie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany. What a wonderful opportunity and experience it is to meet you today and to be available to inspire some other humans.
Yeah, I like that. Inspiring other humans is always a good thing. And starting with your journey, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you actually came about to even being in what looks like such a beautiful place in the background? I'm a little bit jealous and I'd love to know more.
Absolutely. Well, FYI, I'm in Costa Rica. Let's think. I call myself the absent-minded professor, so just keep that in mind while we're talking.
Okay, fair enough.
Things are loosey-goosey with me. So, about 3 years ago, I was sitting on the rooftop in Mexico. I was working remotely for a job, and had got this download. There's no other way to say it as a download. It's a message from the divine, if you will. And it said, you're going to have three job changes going to be mid-March, mid-August, and mid-October. And I was thinking, well, that's quite an awful lot, and I had just been comfortable with my position, but I had been sort of dangled an opportunity in front of me at this, we were at one of those business things called conference, business conference. And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe it'll have to do with that. Cool, whatever. March comes along. The opportunity is given to me along with great responsibility and all, along with lots of tears and lots of heartache and lots of challenges that I wasn't expecting and didn't really appreciate whatsoever. I am a person who likes to enjoy what they're doing, and that joy was lost as soon as I sort of walked this path, which is the path that I thought I wanted to walk, by the way, Miss Tiffany. I was like, yes, that is for me. That's definitely what I want. And then I walked it. I didn't want to walk it after all. And so as mid-August was coming along, because this happened mid-March, just as promised, and so as mid-August was coming along, I had visited a friend out in Santa Barbara. I was living in New York at the time, and I visited a friend out in Santa Barbara to work the rodeo. I was doing some catering for him. He owns a restaurant, and he's like, hey, do you want to come work the rodeo for me again this year in an antique show? I'm like, yeah, cool, that sounds like fun. And, working remotely, so it didn't matter much. Yeah. So I spent my weekend doing that and having a great ton of fun. And when I got on the plane, I met my favorite musician. Not only did I meet him, but he was sitting right next to me. No and I was the last one on the plane. Yes, and if you've ever been to the Santa Barbara airport, it is not very big. And I was the last one on, and I was approaching my seat, and I was like, oh, I saw his red hair, and I was like, there's no way. And when I can't remember the facts here, but when I was younger, we'll say, because I'm older, when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to meet him. And I remember saying it just like, the sky is blue and my name is Stephanie, like I'm going to meet him. And it over the years, like I kept thinking about it. I was like, that was a weird thing for me to have said. Like, why did I say it so assuredly? That's so strange. And so I thought that over and over again. Now, as this is August 8th, okay, of the year 2023. So this is August 8th of the year 2023. Yes, 2023. And some people call this the Lionsgate portal, so a very energetic day. And before these things had been happening, I'd been receiving downloads. I've been receiving conversations. I've been receiving things from other realms, really. And I didn't know what was going on, but I loved it. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Yeah. And I've always been connected, but I hadn't really been that connected before. And so I was sitting next to him. I was like, excuse me, Brett. And he goes, do you know me? Because he's from Ventura, which is a very small town. And I was like, no. I said, but I've been a fan of yours for a really long time. And that's my seat. And so we chatted and he told me things. And I was talking to him and I said, I'm at a crossroads. He goes, how do you know? And Tiffany, I couldn't really explain. I said, well, that little voice that tells you things. He goes, I don't really understand. And I'm like, well, if I go into it too much, I'm not really confident in my answer, to be honest. I said, I just know. Enough. I just know, right? Like, I just know. And if I'm going to go into it too much further, I don't think I could. So I said, okay. I just know. And he goes, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, I'm not going to bother him. And I started journaling. I'm like, I met Brett Didden in my journal as he's sitting next to me. And he's like, can you even read your handwriting? And I said, no. And then we continued our conversation, and what a lovely conversation it was. And so I get home and I get off the plane, and I knew it was a crossroads, and it had become very apparent to me what my crossroads was. And the message was very clear. I could choose the corporate life, and up until this point, my life was not easy. I had not caught one break ever in my life, like little small breaks, but I'd not caught one break. And so they're like, well, if you choose the corporate path, we'll support you. And I said, okay. And they said, but if you choose this other path, which we'll say is a spiritual path, we'll also support you. But if you don't choose the spiritual path, these things that have been happening to you and for you, you won't be able to access like this anymore. And I said, well, I think the choice is clear then.
Yeah.
Not having any plan. So I was like, okay, well, I've made the decision, and now what? And now what? And I just waited around for 10 days and thinking like, shit, what do I do? How do I make this happen? What now what? And my boss at the time was like, we have to have a meeting, blah, blah, blah. A very, self-important man with a lot of problems, that he creates on his own.
Likes to hear
And so
themselves talk.
oh, yes, one of those. And so we had this meeting, and I was in the wrong for this and that, and it was just very tiresome. And I was like, maybe we just don't do this anymore. And I quit the next day.
Oh,
And I quit
wow.
the next day without a plan. Without a plan, with very little money, without a plan. I just knew that I had to do something drastic in order to commit to this life,
Yeah.
because if it meant that this door would close forever, I didn't want that to happen. And so without a plan, I knew I would be caught. And I have been caught, though it's been hard, I have been caught. So that was mid-August, August
Mhm.
18th, exactly. Yeah, that was the day I quit, and then I fell asleep, and I hadn't slept that well in about a year. So that tells you a lot about my circumstances.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks, I was like, for 2 weeks, I'm just going to do whatever I want. So I did whatever I wanted. And then my friend asked me, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I think I'll open a Reiki practice. I've studied Reiki, and, I think I'll just do that. And so I decided to do that, and guess what? Mid-October, October 15th, I signed my lease and opened my practice. Just like that. I spoke to one person. I said, hey, I saw that you're a massage therapist. Do you know anybody who's renting a room? And she said, we are. And I said, oh, there you go. And that was that. And I opened my practice. And it was a bit frightening. It was a
Yeah.
bit overwhelming. I'd never really run a successful business before. I had a lot of false starts, as you do when you're a creative. But
Mhm.
I really had an experience where I was like, oh, this is going to work. But I knew it would. I knew it would get me where I needed to go. And so I drove Uber in the meantime as well,
Mhm.
just to make sure I and pay my rent. And I will tell you, Tiffany, that I could not be more grateful, even though I don't really appreciate all the things that come with the driving for other people. I do
Yeah.
appreciate the people, and that
Yeah.
I found that every single person, just like every single person who became a client of mine, I found that every single person that came into my car was divinely put there. And I kid you not,
Yeah.
I kid you not, I woke them all up. They came into my car, and by the time they left, they were going to start that business. They were going to quit drinking. They were going to whatever. They
Yeah.
were they were going to go back to church. They were going to whatever that it was that they needed in that moment. And these were people from all walks of life, from all the neighborhoods, from all walks of life. I traveled all sorts of places. And I found that that is part of who I am. And for so long I had questioned this part of me that awakens people. And when you awaken people, it's very uncomfortable because they're not asking for it.
And it probably brings up quite a bit too,
He
Yeah.
does. And so a lot of people turn and run, or they do other crazy things.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of experience in my life where I haven't really appreciated that about myself. But these lessons and these blessings, because lessons are blessings, these lessons taught me to not only to lean into who I was, but to lean into the gifts that I have to bring to this world.
I love
And
that.
and when I was sitting on that rooftop in Mexico, one of the voices that also told me I was going to get all of these wonderful things, they're like, you have to go to Costa Rica next. And I said, no, 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 I miss my dog. I'm going to go home. And I did go home. And for 2 years, just it kept poking at me. Costa Rica, Costa Rica. And I every single time that I tried to live a conventional life, even through my practice, even through this driving Uber, every single time that I tried to live this conventional lifestyle and avoid coming to Costa Rica, it fell apart, and it fell
Hmm.
apart in the most grandiose ways. And
Wow.
like incredible disparities came upon my life and challenged my beliefs and challenged my faith and challenged everything that I was doing. But I knew that I had to walk this path. I
Yeah.
knew that I had to walk this path. So I finally bit the bullet, gave up my apartment in August, closed my business in September, and then I left. And now I'm
Wow.
here. And
Wow.
getting here, this is, I think, the most important thing. When I was in my hometown, I was not energetically aligned with my hometown, with where I grew up most of my years. And it sort of felt like I could never be anything other than what I was. And I thought perhaps that was something I was making up in my mind. And
Hmm.
then I heard this thing, someone had said, well, when Jesus was in his hometown, he was only a carpenter. He was only ever a carpenter. When he
Fair.
was home, he could not create miracles. He had to leave home to create his miracles. And I was like, all right, well, let's see what happens. And so I got here, and that I all I did was arrive to Pavones, which is where I am now. I
Hmm.
arrived here, and the next day, these words started coming up out of me. And
Oh,
I'm
wow.
almost done with this season. I've only been here since February.
That's amazing. That is amazing. What a journey. I actually want to go into two things really quickly with you. So the first part is if you don't mind us going back to mid-March, you got that promotion and went into that new role, and something that you said really resonates with me, which is a lot of us in corporate America, we tell ourselves that the next promotion or the next thing is what is
Yeah.
destined for us. And you got
Yeah.
it. And then you realize, no, this is actually what was not destined for me. What were your thoughts when you actually made that realization? It is a hard thing to come to when you realize
Mhm.
that something that you have been told, both, externally, you go, you get the degree, and then you climb the corporate ladder and you get the promotions in the office on the side of the building with the windows, and you're great.
Yep.
And then you start telling yourself that internally too, right? Like, I deserve that. That's what I should be. I need that title. And then you get it. And it's not what it was cracked up to be. That's a very hard place to be.
It is, and it doesn't just happen in corporate America. It happens within our own. It happens within our own waking lives. Like if I just get that car, if I just get that house, if I just get that computer or that whatever it is. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a lesson. It's a lesson in being present, in learning how to just be, right? In learning how to just be who you are and knowing that that is enough. It was a crash course in remembering a lesson I had already learned several times. But if you don't learn a lesson, the universe always makes it very difficult. And so this one was very painful because I just wasn't listening.
Yeah.
And it's a crash course in remembering that you, just as you are, just as you came here to this earth, are complete and whole and worthy of everything that comes to you. And that the next thing, anything outside of yourself, anything, and I mean anything, even this beautiful lush greenery around me, anything outside of yourself is never, ever going to heal you the way that going into your heart will, and facing those hard things that have happened to you throughout your life
Yeah.
that you are trying to fill with whatever it is you're trying to fill, whatever it is that dream has promised to you may fulfill. It will not, it will never, it
Yeah.
cannot. Only you are capable of making yourself whole. And when you become whole, you will realize that everything external is just a bonus.
Yeah.
Everything external is just an experience, as we were talking about. These flowers that I'm sitting next to, these birds that are chattering away behind me. What a delightful surrounding I'm in. What a bonus. I get to do this life here. How cool is
I
that?
love that. I love that. So I then want to fast forward a little bit. You talked about not feeling energetically aligned when you went back.
Mm,
So when you went back to your hometown, and I thought that was such a poignant thing to say.
mm,
I can also imagine too at that point you were saying to yourself, okay, I really need to go ahead and make this step towards Costa Rica.
yeah.
In your life, did you have to deal with any maybe some pushback, or maybe them not even understanding that for you it came down to how do I feel? I'm not very well versed in energy. I would love to learn more, but how did you broker those conversations and what did that look like? Having to deal with maybe some external doubt.
I'll put it to you this way. Other people's opinions about what I'm doing or who I am are none of my business, right? I don't really, for a long time, my decisions were based upon, oh, what's my mother going to say? Oh, what's
Yeah.
my friend going to say? Like, oh, I
Yeah.
better counsel with them. Like, what are they going to tell me? And every single time I followed their advice, what a load of shit.
Thank you for being real with me, Stephanie. Here we are.
Because, but because I cannot live your life.
Yeah.
You came here to be your energy, to be who you are. And a true friend, a person who is meant to be in your life will say, well, I trust that this is what you need because that's what you say. And there have been very few people in my life. There are very few people in my life. There are less people than there are fingers on this hand
Mhm.
that have supported me throughout my life. And one of them has passed away this last year.
I'm sorry to hear
And
that.
it's I thank you for that. But that it has never stopped me, because perhaps I am quite stubborn, but it has never stopped me from getting back up and still asking my heart, okay, what next? What next? Because if I was to spend my days seeking approval from other people or worrying about what other people had to say, well, I would just be stuck, wouldn't I? I wouldn't be here, that's for sure.
Fair. Fair. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with being stuck, right? Because sometimes we use that as a crutch because you feel like if you gather just enough data points or enough input from other people, then you can make the right decision, where it's just a reason not to make a decision or not to move
Yeah.
forward. I've definitely been there. I shouldn't say always, but I have seen patterns in my life where I need to make a decision. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't want to make the wrong decision. So let me counsel with all these other people first. And really, I would say it was my mom, my grandmother, what would my sister, what will they think? Where it's just kind of like, make the decision, go forward, do something, right? You're just
Yeah.
stalling at this point. The perfectionist in me just doesn't want to move forward.
Oh, you silly goose. The perfectionist. So I was the perfectionist for such a long time, and what
Hmm.
a drag of a way to live, you know? What a drag
Yeah,
of a way to live. It's most fun messing up, like
fair.
doing something, and you're like, well, that didn't work out. Well, what did I do wrong, and how can I do it better? Like,
Yeah.
you cannot build a house if you don't have a foundation, and you don't get a foundation unless you try and mess it up.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I've heard this before, and it used to give me a lot of anxiety when I used to hear it, and now I get it a little bit more, which was fail quickly if you're going to fail. And I would be like, well, I don't want to fail at all. How dare you even mention failing quickly? And now it's like, yeah, let's get it out of the way so I can at least get my lessons learned, or I know what to do better next time, and I'm good, right? But it used to give me so much pause. So much pause. Like, how
Mhm.
dare you suggest I fail? Good time. Still learning. Still learning.
You got
Um,
this.
so you mentioned, not necessarily having a plan when you finally decided to walk away, but it seems like maybe the universe had a plan for you with even something as simple as driving the Uber, right? Because it gave you the broad range of interactions with so many different people and helped you. It sounds like it helped you kind of tune into your ability with being able to heal and understand different points of energy. Would you say that was maybe a fair assessment?
Yes, of course. I had to give faith. I had to give faith to the universe, to the cosmos, to whomever is clever. I
Yeah.
had to give faith, and when I did that, every single day, I woke up early enough to watch the sunrise, and I worked late enough to watch the sunset every single day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And yeah, and I did that. It was exhausting. I mean, I took some naps. I'm a nap girl, but um,
Amen.
but but what I was gifted every day was either I made somebody cry, which I'm in the business of,
Mhm.
or they made me cry
Wow.
because there were gifts. It was an exchange of energy every single day that I am eternally grateful for. And the first few days I was driving Uber, I was like so annoyed, and This,
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, Steph, if you're gonna do it, you better do it right. So you might as well enjoy it and you might as well have
Yeah.
fun. You have to do it. So have fun. So I changed my perspective, and as soon as I did, the folks that came into my car, whether they had nothing or they had everything, were the most beautiful people I have ever met in my entire life. And not only did they restore my faith in my community, because I lived in Rochester, New York, which is per capita the most violent city in the United States. And not only did it restore my faith in my community, but it restored my faith in humanity itself, where I had these doubts and these, I've always loved unconditionally, but you still have doubts. I went to bed every day just thanking the universe. I woke up with the sun every day saying, and this is important for some reason, I have to tell you this, but I woke up with the sun every day saying this little mantra: I am the sun and the sun is me. I am the moon and the moon is me. I am the sky and the sky is me. I am the trees and the trees are me. I am everything and everything is me. And when I said that, I reminded myself to be present and to be one with all things. And I think that really truly gave me the gifts, made it possible for those gifts to be given and those gifts to be received. Because it's all exchange, right? We're always dancing.
Yeah. I love that. Energy seems like a constant thing, right? I don't know that there's any point in time where you can turn off your energy. So, in interacting with so many different people, how do you protect your energy just in your day to day? What does that look
Well,
like?
that's a great question, my friend. Protecting your energy. So for a long time, I believed in this protection, but what I learned is very, very important, is that if you are authentic, if you are wholly authentic, if you are connected to all things, you understand that the only thing that you need protecting from is your own self. Okay?
Huh.
Your reactions to other people are ego based. They're trauma based. They are based on the things that you've experienced. This person that comes into your purview, this person who comes into your reality, is there to teach you something. We only interact with people as mirrors. So if there is a person who is coming in and challenging you, something within you, that is not them. That is you.
Hmm.
That is, why is this person bringing this up in me? Oh, I should probably heal that. And once you begin to see your interactions in the world and your resistance to the world as healing, as the pathway, it's literally the path to returning to yourself. It's very simple. It's given to you every day. You just have to see it this way. And once you begin to walk it this way, once you begin to understand it this way, there's nothing to protect yourself from because you've healed everything. No one can hurt you unless you allow them.
Wow.
No one can hurt you unless you allow them. If you understand that you are complete and whole as you are, that's it. There's nothing can happen to you that isn't meant to happen, that isn't divinely guided. All right? I hope that answers your question.
It's such an insightful response and something to really think about for certain. So, it does help me. And I believe it's probably going to help a lot of others
Oh,
as
good.
well. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I'd love to take a pivot into your writing because you said as soon as you made this change, that's when the words
Mhm.
really just started coming out of you. And so I'd love to just understand a bit more about how you just found your voice as a writer and as a creator. And then I would imagine it sounds like maybe the words kind of took form. Maybe not necessarily you saying this is specifically what I'm going to pursue. That at least that's how I imagine it. But I'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a writer my whole life. I have a love for words. My mother instilled that in me, and I instilled that into my son. He read the dictionary cover to cover several times over. So we have a deep love for words in my lineage, which I am utterly grateful for.
Hmm.
It's such a good way to express yourself as a human, a
Fair.
bit inefficient, but it is beautiful. So when I got here, I was meeting up with a friend. So I I had taken a ride from a friend. I was going the opposite direction, and this friend had just happened into where I was, and he said, "Oh, I'm going the opposite direction. You want to ride?" And I said, "Sure." I didn't even know where it was. I didn't even know where I was going, and I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll figure it out. I don't even know if I'm gonna have a place to stay." So he sold me his tent. I've been sleeping in a one-person tent for the majority of the time I've been here, right on the ocean. Can't complain.
Hmm.
And he said, "Let's meet up at the cafe the very next day." And I said, "All right, sounds good." and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to write a book. And then I got very, we'll say my masculine energy was speaking, because it certainly was. I'm like, I'm going to write a book, and this is what it's going to look like. And I had been given before the title of the book in January. I was sitting and just enjoying the birds and the morning with my coffee and just listening to what I had to hear, what anything messages that come through, which is what I do with my mornings. And When the Soul Begins, that is the name of my book. When the Soul Begins comes through. And I was like, oh, I have to write this down in my little, I have got tons of journals in different sizes. And I was like, oh, we'll write this down in my little journal, which is for singular ideas, you know. And so I wrote it down in my little journal. It's the first thing in there. And then I closed it and didn't open it up again. For like a couple of weeks. And so when I got here, I was like, oh, it's going to look like this, and we're going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And I started writing about telepathy. And then I said my goodbyes, and I went back to my space, my camping spot here. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I didn't know why I didn't like it, but I didn't like it at all. So I was having a conversation with a friend, and he went to go do his thing. And after this conversation, it's as if fireworks went off. I don't know how else to explain this, but it was just like fireworks went off, and my energy exploded in this most beautiful way. And I got my laptop back out, and I wrote a chapter, and I was like, holy cats, this is it. This is it. And so the process of writing has been quite beautiful. I've always known that I've wanted to write. And so I've also always known that I've wanted to go and speak to people publicly around the world. And so I joined Toastmasters like when I was in my teens. Like I started writing on Medium, like just little articles this past year, just like, I have to find my voice. I have an Instagram that like, it's okay. But the only goal was to find my voice, just to practice. Like, I don't care if it's perfect. I don't care if it's good. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to do it until something clicks, right? Until it works or it doesn't. And I'm just going to keep recalibrating. But at no point am I going to compromise my integrity to my message and to who I am. I'm not going to try to fit into a box, because I do not fit into a box. And so I'm not going to put myself into this box, because what I have to say is not box worthy. And I refuse to do it.
That's fair. And you did mention that when you try to live a conventional life, it just didn't work for you. So then why would you keep going back down that path?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Revolutionaries do not walk the paths of others. They walk their own paths. And I've always walked my own path, much to the chagrin of other people. But, who cares about them anyways? I don't even remember who they are. So the process of writing has been so beautiful. I get up in my day, and it's really how I structure my day. Okay. It's really a dance of feminine and masculine energies. So the feminine energy, for our listeners who aren't familiar, the feminine energy, we could call it the yin and the yang. There's all sorts of things. The feminine energy is about receiving and creating. The masculine energy is about destruction and force. Okay. And so in the corporate world, women are very much in their masculine energy in order to survive it, which is why they're hella exhausted. I was like, not gonna do that with my life, right? Like, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna discover our feminine energy. So a lot of my healing and a lot of my discovering, because I had to go on a healing journey, really, but a lot of this went on my relationship to the feminine and the feminine energy. And so what I've learned is that if I live a balanced life, which looks like I get up when I get up, whenever I feel like getting up, usually when I'm sweating in my tent. So whenever that happens to be, I get up and I wake up my lymph nodes, and I do a little stretching, and I eat half a papaya, and sometimes I walk to the coffee shop, or sometimes I just walk the beach, but I get a little exercise in first thing. And then from there I do a little writing, and then from there I take a little nap, or I go swimming, and then I do a little more writing, and then from there I dance. I usually dance the sunset into this bird. I don't know what bird this is, but if you can get rid of this bird, I do hope you can, because this bird is just too much.
Bird is part of like a co-creator for this episode right now. I think that bird actually deserves some credit, wouldn't you say?
He's in his masculine energy. I did ask politely if they could hold off, but nature will be nature. So anyways, I have to dance every day.
Yeah.
It's part of my creation. And then sometimes I write some more and sometimes I don't. And some days I don't write at all. And what I have been discovering in this process is that in the beginning I would get frustrated when I wouldn't want to write. I'd be like, why am I not writing? That's not productive. Hold up. This isn't the life that you wanted to live. You didn't want to live a life based around your worth is not based around your productivity. Get out of here with that. That's old energy. Let it go. So I had to recalibrate. Let
It's
it go.
crazy how it sneaks in.
So silly. And so it would sneak in and I'd have to release it again. And when I would release it and I would dance and I would walk and I would swim and I would talk to friends and I'd go, there's literally the place to hang out here is called the Wall, and it's literally a wall. This is a surfer town and it's literally a wall. And I didn't believe it until I saw it. And you sit on this wall and you watch the surfers, or you're a surfer and you sit on the wall and you take a break or whatever, but it's just where people come to hang. So sometimes I hang out there and sometimes I talk to the birds and whatever. But in these moments where I am like in rest mode, enjoyment mode, really where I'm just present, is when things come in. So then I have always got a notebook nearby where I'm like, oh, that's what I'm going to write about. That's what I'm going to write about. And then it's usually one, maybe two things. And then as I sit down and write, the more words flow out of me. And I will tell you that I am a conduit. I am a conduit. I have actually I channel with beings regularly, which is a whole other conversation that's not for this time. But if you have ever spoken to other writers, or if you ever speak to writers or artists or musicians, right? Even when I've written music and when I've painted, like, you are a conduit. When it comes to your creation, you are expressing not only what's inside of you, right? But you are expressing through, the divine is expressing through you. And so if you allow yourself to be open and to receive while you're creating, you are all the more better for it. So, I never became a better artist than when I didn't care what it looked like. When I was just like, well, this is fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Painting actually looked like a sunset, and it actually had some depth, and it actually had some highlights. I was like, oh, I can actually do this, turns out.
I love
So,
that.
yeah. So that's my process, more or less. I'm always verbose, so I do appreciate you.
No, absolutely. It works, right? Because I want to hear, I want to listen, and it's such an incredible story. And KPI always just wants to sneak its way in. And it's great that you caught that and you're just kind of like, wait a minute, let me take a step back and realize and understand where that's coming from. Right?
Hold up.
Really great lesson. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and just relaxed conversation. And I had the nerve to say, hey, I want to circle back with you on that. Where in the heck is that coming from? We don't circle back. We don't do all that nonsense. Speak like a human, right? You're not a cog in a machine. You're not, your life isn't based on how well you performed XYZ. We're human. And so I
Yeah.
loved hearing you say that. I wouldn't imagine how that way that it just kind of sneaks in there and just kind of gets you caught up.
Yeah.
So good on you for noticing that. Uh,
Unlearning, like, returning to yourself, Tiffany, is it's a whole unlearning process, and it's so uncomfortable sometimes.
yeah.
It's why most people turn back. It's why most people don't walk this path, because it means that you have to go into this unknown energy. You have to throw caution to the wind. You have to take leaps of faith, and you have to
Yeah.
know that you're going to be caught. And
Yeah.
most people, they don't want to do that because it's too scary.
Yeah.
And gosh, golly, can you imagine if everyone faced what was bringing them down and keeping them stuck? Can you imagine if everyone was just set free? If we could evolve past our egos, can you imagine what that world would look like? That is the world that I imagine every day, and that is what I move towards every day, and that is why I'm writing this book. This book is to help awaken as many people as possible. As a healer, I deal one-on-one, with clients, and I love it. I love it. However, I realized that I don't play small. As a person, I've never played small. And that it is so important to me to get out to as many people as possible. And I have known for my whole life that I was going to do this. I have known since I was very little that I was sent here to do something very big. And so I had to decide. I had to decide to get out of victim mode. I had to decide to let go of my shackles to my harms. I had to decide to face my demons, to face my ego, to face the things that were holding me back. And it is a daily thing. Like, just because you heal things doesn't mean it doesn't come up. Like I just said, it doesn't mean they don't sneak back in, and you have to be like, let me just fix that right there. And if I could encourage anybody, and this is what I hope to do with my book, of course, but in this moment, in this platform that I have, this opportunity that I have right now, if I can encourage you to do it scared. I know it's one of those cliche sayings, but it is so freaking true. Do it scared. Do not think that I, just because I'm doing this, that I have not been terrified, that I have not had doubt, that I have not had a place in my heart where I've been like, well, I don't know about that. But if my intuition, if my heart, which is what I operate from, I no longer operate from my mind, and I operate from what my heart says. I wake up every day and I'm like, heart, what are we doing today? And that's what we do. In every moment, that's what we do. And so if you learn to operate from your heart space, that is ascending. That is going beyond what we are as humans, because your heart is an energetic force, and it knows exactly what it's supposed to be doing it for you and for your greatest good. And that is the challenge. And I challenge you, and you can do it.
I love it. I love it. Stephanie, I know we're getting a little bit close on time here. Would we be able to bother you just to hear a little bit from your book, if that's okay?
Yes, Mama, of course. Just give me 1 second. I gotta
Sure,
open
take
up
your
my
time.
computer, and then I have to be able to see, which is, if you can see, I have glasses, it's always a challenge.
Seeing helps, yes. I love the red, by the way.
Thank you. They actually broke this morning, so we're doing this half-mast. All right, so we're going to read the chapter, Seek First to Understand. Most of us move so fast that we cannot see our current surroundings with the reverence and presence they deserve, always focused on the destination, not realizing that life is only a moment. Here, in the stillness, in the now, we can understand everything. We can understand that we must slow down and that we must open our minds and our hearts. When I speak of seeing, I am not speaking of the five senses we are aware of. To be clear, I mean to hear without hearing, to know without knowing, to see without seeing, and so on. Perhaps this is more unclear than clear, but it is what I am speaking to. The plants always have something that they want to say to us. The plants are always here to give us answers. The animals have much to tell us. The wind, the rivers, even the table you are sitting in front of now has things to tell us. You wonder how. I know that what I am saying is to challenge your understanding, but in this fact, take heed. Everything is energy. As such, to understand energy is to communicate in a way that is give and take, in a way that is lyrical, and to know that even if the exchange is not equal in the moment, but the cosmos will always balance, which is why it is most important to understand the energy around us, to be in communication and to be able to live in give and take so that we may grow this new world from the ways of everything that already is. This is the only way that we can achieve unity completely. Seek first to understand everything in your world, and the harmony and peace and joy in your life will amplify, as will the people and all that is within proximity thrive.
I love that.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
If there is a word I think at least I needed for today, I think that is it. I mean, just being open. And I'm you don't have to thank me. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And
You are
I'm kind of being greedy now, in terms of timeline for when, when your book will be coming out, when the soul begins. What does that look like? What's that timeline?
Oh well, gosh golly, I've never written a book before. So I am I have a very small circle, as I have admitted to you. I've reached out to somebody. I am most likely going to finish in the next few weeks writing it, and then I have to edit it and all of that jazz. But I
Makes
have
sense.
I I have nothing to lose. We'll put it that way. I have nothing to
Yeah.
lose. And everything to gain. At this point in my life, I have very, very little. And it does not stop me, and it does not slow me down. And so perhaps this will help me to get this project off the ground faster, and perhaps this will lead me down a path that will get this faster. But I have begun to reach out to people who can help, and I am at the mercy of of others for this.
Okay.
And so I don't know. But
Okay. And
as
that
soon as possible, Tiffany.
what I think the next best thing would be if you could tell us or the listeners where they can probably maybe find or keep track of any updates from you.
Yes. So I ran into a friend and he has told me to create a Kickstarter campaign. This is just
Nice.
yesterday. So this is just yesterday. So I will have my Kickstarter campaign up and running by the end of the week. So hopefully, I don't know how long your process is, but we'll attach that to this and whatever and whatever. And it was clever.
We
And
absolutely
you can
will.
read me there and support me there, and we'll get this out sooner than later. And people who support me will get an ebook, and those who give a little more will get a signed copy. A little more, you'll get to meet with me, etc., etc. So what a wise friend I have met, and the universe always provides when you're least expecting it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can work together and we will update the show notes to include any and every bit of information that we need because I think this is going to be something that helps so many people. And I'm looking forward
Thank
to reading
you.
your book as well. So I
Thank
got
you.
one last one. I'm going to end
All
it
right.
with a last little question here that I'm really interested in hearing. So if you could go back and speak to yourself before you started this journey, what advice would you give yourself?
So I'm going to counter your question. So yesterday I was walking the beach.
Hmm.
And I don't remember why I was walking the beach, just because I was walking the beach. And I looked back, and the moment I looked back, a dead crab, this crab wasn't even alive, a dead
Yeah.
crab leg poked my foot so hard that the claw stuck in my foot, and I
Oh,
had to take it out. And I was like, ow, what the heck?
yeah.
And I heard, don't look back. So while what has happened to me has shaped me, and while I could very well give you tons of beautiful things to give to my former self, I rather enjoy that I had to discover each and every place, each and every mountain,
Mm.
each and every valley without this prior knowledge, because it makes it all the more rewarding for me to be where I am. And so to understand that the unknown, because this is really what it's about, that the unknown is where everything is. That's where all your answers lie. So to
I love
trust in
that.
that and to have faith in that.
I love that. Well, Stephanie, I can't thank you enough for an amazing conversation. I am looking forward to when your book launches. Just there have been so many great points that you've brought up, and I really felt like this was just a vibe, not just a conversation. And so thank you so much for being willing to be a guest on our show.
Oh, you're welcome. What a pleasure. You're such a treasure, my friend. And I just love getting to meet new people. And I thank you so much. And I hope that this brings you great success and fills your heart every day.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes.